Welcome to another episode in which I try and turn old, ugly clothes into hopefully slightly less ugly old clothes. The shirts are all very different in terms of colour and texture, but they all share one very important commonality. They need a new purpose in life, don't we all? Without further ado, let's meet the first shirt. I believe her name is Geraldine. Geraldine has very kindly given us a biography of herself. I didn't know shirts could do that either, but there you go. Geraldine is silky and smooth. She is orange in colour, although she'd like to clarify for some reason that she ain't no traffic cone, no fake tan, tacky orange. She's a classy orange, a burnt orange even, because she's so hot. Burnt orange because she's so hot. Geraldine also goes on to tell us about her identity crisis. She doesn't really know whether she's a top or a dress. She hasn't fully committed to either one. She's just a bit too short to be a dress, at least for my standards. So this is my plan for Geraldine. My plan for her, of course, includes puffy sleeves. I'm thinking a tie front neckline, more gathers to really make the most of that voluptuous fabric. And to get this look, I'm going to use a pattern. This one was released by a sewing blogger called Cool Stitches. She is insanely talented. Definitely go and check her out. I thought this design of hers would be perfect for our Geraldine. I'll link her website down below. You can get this pattern for free on there. Let's do it. Starting things off by cutting out the fabric. I'm giving myself quite a generous seam allowance just to be on the safe side because, you know, I've not exactly got any spare fabric. There's only one of Geraldine. Then I'm marking in the bust darts with some chalk, sewing them in place, right sides together, you know the drill. Ooh, would you just look at that clean line? Next, I'm calling in for backup and bringing out the overlocker to finish all of the raw edges. This can also be done with a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. Using a simple straight stitch, I sewed the shoulders together, which brings me to here. I was tempted to leave it as a silky avant-garde vest, but yeah, I just love puffy sleeves way too much for that. I used Geraldine's existing sleeves, although for ultimate puffiness, I added in a new gathering stitch and pulled on that until I achieved my desired volume. And with right sides together, I sewed in my new and even puffier sleeve. I should also say that Cool Stitches does have her own video tutorial to go along with her pattern. That is what I was following when I was making this. I will leave the link to that video down below if you would like to make this top too. Next, I sewed up the side seams and hemmed the entire front neckline, which brings us to here. This is where I'm deciding where I would like my gathering channels to be. I wanted them to be shaping and flattering. And with my hands being this close to my chest, it just sort of naturally led me into doing my Karen Smith from Mean Girls impression. This is Karen Smith. It's 68 degrees and there's a 30% chance that it's already raining.
Hi, this is Karen Smith. It's 68 degrees and there's a 30% chance that it's already raining.
And it was raining. Wow, Tina Fey's science really held up there. If my attempt at an American accent was anything near as bad as an American attempting a Scottish accent, then wow, I'm so sorry. Okay, so here I am pinning down my gathering channels, making sure they follow the placement lines that I had marked for them. Then it was just a case of sewing them down on either side, making two little tunnels on the inside of my top. Using fabric I had left, I then started cutting strips to make the straps. I sewed these all down right sides together and finished off the raw edge with a zigzag stitch. Okay, so here I am using something called a loop turner, and it is just the best thing when you're making straps. You just slide it through your strap, hook it on at the top, pull it through, revealing your nice, clean, crisp strap. It's the best. Then all I had left to do was to feed through my 2 straps, hem the bottom of the top, and that was it. I am honestly so happy with how this top turned out. Huge thank you to Cool Stitches for releasing such a sick pattern. I feel like Geraldine went from a generous 4 to a solid 10, but you can be the judge of that. Let's meet shirt number 2. His name is Ralph and I believe he is quite old, possibly even vintage. My boyfriend actually gave me this shirt. He got it secondhand and has had it for years and has now given it to me in the hopes that I can repurpose it and give it a new lease of life. Now I have to say, Ralph is kind of falling apart. His threads are coming loose at the cuffs and the collar. I think it's fair to say that Ralph has seen better days. In his long life, maybe it was 2020 that finally tore him apart. No. Here is my plan for Ralph. I'd like to stay true to the classic shirt that Ralph is, but put a modern twist on him and turn him into like a baby shirt. Not to be confused with a shirt for a baby. Basically a cropped shirt, but this is going to be a little more complex than just slicing off half the shirt. First we give Ralph a chop to deconstruct his pieces, then laying him nice and flat, I grab a small t-shirt that I already own and start tracing this shape onto him. I made sure to give myself a generous seam allowance. I ended up going with 1 inch, and once I finished tracing, I cut all of the pieces out, which gives me this, a back piece, 2 front pieces, and 2 sleeves. First thing I do is sew up the shoulder seams right sides together, making sure that that neckline is perfectly even. Next up, it's time to reattach the sleeves, so first of all, I'm pinning them in place, and then with a straight stitch and right sides together, I'm sewing them along. The shirt then looks something like this. You can always leave the shirt like this if you're a particularly sweaty person and you need the extra armpit ventilation. Well, since I'm not a particularly sweaty person, I decided to sew up my side seams. At this point, I wanted to try on the shirt just to see how it was looking and if it actually fit. Is it bad that I'm like really surprised by how well this is going? I have no faith in my own abilities. I think I was just so worried that I was gonna have another sleeve fiasco like my bustier blouse video. I had like a complete meltdown over the sleeves. I'm losing circulation in my arms just waiting this. But I mean, no circulation is being cut off. My arms can move. I can even pick something up. I can wave to the neighbours. I could punch someone, you know, if they say that they don't like my shirt. Okay, now I'm just procrastinating, moving on to the next step. Next, I wanted to fix that torn collar that Ralph had, but first I had to make it a little bit smaller since I reduced the neckline when sewing everything. So I went ahead and flipped the collar inside out and then put a line of stitching down on either end of the collar to reduce it to the size I needed to fit the new neckline. After pointing the corners out so that they were nice and crisp, I decided to overlock this raw edge of the collar to give it a nice clean finish. Next, I pinned it down to the inside of the shirt, making sure it was nice and evenly spaced. I then went ahead and sewed that in with a straight stitch, although I did end up having a slight mishap, shall we say. So I was sewing in my collar, minding my own business, when I hear this really loud noise. Like, it did not sound good. You know when you're driving your car and your car makes a really not good sounding noise and you just think, I'll just keep driving. But I was like, I'll just keep sewing, and turns out I didn't realise I was sewing through a button. That is all that's left. My needle just stabbed it to oblivion. So I no longer have a top button since my machine murdered it, but Who needs one of those anyway? Ooh, but look how cute that collar looks. Okay, so here I'm deciding what lengths I wanted my sleeves and my body. Then I hemmed those edges to my desired length. I was keen to reattach Ralph's original pocket, but I wanted to shrink it a little bit since the rest of the shirt had also shrunk. So I went ahead and trimmed it down. With an iron, I pressed all of the edges inwards and then I sewed it down to the front of the shirt. And voila! Ralph and his pocket are reunited. Ralph is nearly complete, but unfortunately there was still a little bit of damage left on him just below the collar, and I decided to fix the issue by using embroidery. First of all, I got some interfacing and applied it to the inside of the shirt in this area to give it support and stability. If only there was interfacing for humans. I feel like we all need some support and stability. Then I started embroidering flowers to conceal the ripped section. I didn't do a very good job at filming this, but basically what I used was a lazy daisy stitch, I think it's called. It's a super easy stitch and the results are so lovely. I just think embroidery is such a sweet way to bring new life to damaged or old garments. And as you can see here, the flowers have perfectly covered Ralph's little rip. Time for the final reveal. Good news. We have the boyfriend's seal of approval. Do you like what I did with your shirt?
The shirt is just fantastic. I can't believe that it's the same shirt. Genuinely. Very, very, very impressed. Isn't it amazing?
That's nice. I'm gonna need to blur that out. We can't have kissing on this channel. It's time to meet our final shirt. And her name is Rosa. Now, it pains me to say it, but Rosa is just kind of boring. I mean, she's plain and she's purple. She does have some interesting darker accents on the sleeves and the collar, but that's pretty much it. She looks like the kind of shirt that your dad would wear to a dinner party and feel self-conscious in because it's purple and therefore feminine. See, this is funny because it was actually my dad who gave me this shirt to upcycle because he didn't want to wear it anymore. So this is my plan for Rosa. I don't have a plan for Rosa. I'm just kind of hoping to throw her onto the mannequin and see what happens. I'm hoping that we can birth a beautiful garment of some sort. And this is me not really having any idea of what I'm doing, but then I had a realization. I've just realized something terrible. My mannequin doesn't have a name, and I give names to everything I own. Like, my car is called Cedric, my sewing machine is Janet. I literally named the 3 shirts in this video, and yeah, the closest object I own to being an actual person is nameless. But fear not. Actually, I should be talking to her. Fear not. I will give you a name, or rather, my Instagram followers will give you a name. So I thought I'll take it to Instagram and let you decide what I should name her. I'm so excited to see all the suggestions. Stick around until the end of the video where her name will be revealed. Then, with a moment of inspiration, I ran with an idea I had for Rosa. And in case you're wondering, yes, I am in my pajamas. So I started by cutting off the button placket and collar, as well as seam ripping off that front pocket of hers. Next, I grabbed some chalk and started marking out my new desired neckline, as well as marking out the new positions for the sleeves. And then following the lines, I cut the shirt accordingly. And can you guess what my idea was? A kimono! Yeah, I wanted to make Rosa into a really cool kimono style top. And now to the sewing machine. Then I hemmed the entire shirt from the bottom all the way up across the neckline and then both sleeves. This kimono top ended up being really straightforward and simple, so great for a beginner project if that's something you're interested in. Okay, so to make a belt, I started cutting any fabric I had left into strips and then sewed them together to make one long strip, which would be long enough to tie around my waist and act as a sufficient belt. Then, like other straps in this video, I just sewed the strip down right sides together and then flipped it out. After closing off the ends, I tried it on my top and marked where I wanted the belt to sit. Remember those dark accents on the shirt I was talking about? Well, I decided to use one of them to act as my belt loops. Very thrifty, I know. So after ripping it off the cuff, I simply sewed it into place where I'd marked on the shirt, and that was it. Rosa in her new kimono-inspired form is now complete. So we've had 3 old shirts and subsequently 3 big flips. That would naturally conclude this video. However, if there is one thing I hate, it's waste. Specifically, fabric waste. And well, there is a healthy serving of scrap fabric from these shirts that I am not willing to go to waste. So apparently, I'm not done sewing. You're probably bored of the video at this point, and to be honest, I am bored of the video at this point. With Geraldine's remains, I hope to make a little silky bralette. With what we have left of Ralph, I'm still not quite sure. There really is not enough of Rosa left to make something else, but luckily she was an organ donor, so I'm going to harvest her organs and save her buttons for a future project. Okay, so first of all, I've never attempted anything along the lines of lingerie before, so please bear with me. I start off by tracing the shapes of a bra that I already have, and then using some scrap fabric, I sew a practice cup. Measuring it against myself, I sort of mark out roughly the adjustments I think it needs. And then I trace it again, but with the addition of the adjustments that I've made. And then I make a second practice cup to make sure that I haven't royally messed up. I then slice Geraldine's remains into these shapes and sew them together. And then I repeat this so that I have 2 of each cup. Not because I have 4 breasts, no, I only have 2. Okay, moving on. I use Geraldine's old button plackets as straps. And taking 2 cup layers, I lay them right sides together and wedge the strap in between these layers and sew around the edges, leaving the bottom edge open. Once these stitches are down, I flip it right side out and this is how it's looking. Okay, so now I'm taking Geraldine's old collar and evening out the edges. I plan to use the collar as the front band of the bralette, but first of all, to join the 2 cups together, I just throw in a few stitches at the top corner. Then I sandwich the bottom of the 2 cups into the collar and just sew along this long edge. And then to finish off the back, I make this tube and put elastic through it so as to make this sort of stretchy band. After sewing this stretchy band in, I finish things off by attaching the straps. Okay, so this bralette is far from perfect, but you know, for a first attempt, I think it's not too bad. Anyway, here is the reveal. Last but not least, we have Ralph's leftovers. So I decided to make a really simple and fun summer blouse. It's really easy if you're interested in trying it. I start off by making a really basic front bodice piece which will fit around my chest nicely. Okay, so using the spare fabric to create one long strip, I then hem down one of these long edges, as you're seeing here. And with the other long edge, I fold it over and sew this down, but make sure that there's enough space in between the edge and the stitching to fit a piece of elastic. So essentially creating a small tunnel. I then get some elastic, measure it around my waist, snip it to size, and then feed it through this tunnel. After securing the elastic down with some stitches, I join together the two ends of this long strip to create one loop, like this. I then sew this loop straight onto the front bodice piece at the underbust point. And lastly, to finish things off, I make a couple of straps and attach them on. I think this ended up being such a sweet little summer top. I just love the backless look, but yeah, you can tell me what you think. Finished. Which flip was your favourite? Let me know. I'm genuinely interested to know which you guys preferred. I hope this video inspired you to start sewing and take clothing manufacturing into your own hands and take the power out of the hands of evil multinational fast fashion companies who seriously underpay their garment workers. And if you try any of these flips, feel free to tag me on Instagram. I'm just at Vintage Thursday. I always love to see your creations. Although if you try the first top with the pattern, you should definitely tag Cool Stitches because that is her design and I'm sure she would love to see your versions of her top. Thanks so much for watching and giving me your time. If you enjoyed it, maybe I'll see you in the next one. Bye. There you are. It's the moment you've all been waiting for. So there were so many good suggestions that came in. I mean, some of these names. Okay, some of my favourites include Janine, sister of Janet, as in Janet my sewing machine, Thusnelda, I didn't even know that was a name, Ophelia, Hildegard, Estelle, although I feel like I could only call her Estelle if I myself was an American boy. I hope someone got that reference. I had a few suggestions saying Bartholomew, Evangeline, Gloria, someone suggested I call her Busty. I mean, we don't want to make her self-conscious. Shakira, Harriet, Francesca, had a couple of Florences, Vivian, Gertrude. I've made my decision. I proudly present to you, Patricia! I decided to go with Patricia because it reminded me of that song, Patricia the Stripper. And then I thought, mannequins are kind of like strippers, you know, because you're always taking their clothes off. So thank you to outofthesketchbook_9 for suggesting Patricia.